Great. So welcome to the series, Speaking Up for Point Molate. Danny, would you post the first slide? Thank you. In this series, we have invited speakers that address key questions and issues about Point Molate, and members of the public can ask questions. We'd like to begin this program by recognizing that we're gathered on the unceded ancestral land of the Ohlone people. We acknowledge and respect the connection of the Ohlone people to this land, past, present, and future. To this day, our federal government does not consider the Ohlone people as a federally recognized American Indian tribe. We stand in solidarity with their right to self-determination and justice. Our speaker, Norman LaForce, this evening will speak for about 30 to 40 minutes. Then we'll have a Q&A. Please limit questions to 1 minute. If you have a more complex question or comment, please post it in the chat and we'll consider having perhaps a speaker on that topic. Please also post in the chat any ways that we can improve, and your email address if you'd like to be contacted directly. This session and future sessions will be recorded and posted. We're a bit delayed in posting the sessions because our basically our web master has been camping for 2 months. Next, so I'm Pam Stello. I'm co-chair of the Point Molate Alliance, the Richmond Shoreline Alliance. I also serve on the Citizens for East Shore Parks Board of Directors, and I'm a co-founder of this series with Sally Tobin. Sally, can you wave your hand, please? Sally Tobin is a biologist and retiree of the Stanford Center for Biomedical Ethics. She received her PhD from the University of Washington in developmental biology. She's a member of the Point Molate Alliance, the Richmond Shoreline Alliance, and the Bay Area Sea Kayakers, among others. She serves on the board of Citizens for East Shore Parks, and she lives in Point Richmond. We're really happy tonight to have Danny 𝐬𝐸𝐞𝐾 with us. Danny is our Zoom administrator. She's the Bay and Shoreline organizer for the San Francisco Bay chapter of the Sierra Club. She's passionate about environmental justice, community health, water protections, and ecological restoration and conservation. Before the Sierra Club, Danny worked with the Richmond Listening Project, which was sponsored by the Richmond Progressive Alliance. We are very pleased to have Norman LaForce here tonight on short notice. He was able to join us to provide answers to the questions that we all have about the recent events concerning Point Molate. Norman is the Sierra Club San Francisco Bay chapter legal chair and president of SPRAWLDEF. SPRAWLDEF is the Sustainability, Parks, Recycling, and Wildlife Legal Defense Fund. It's a nonprofit created to take on environmental issues that others cannot or will not pursue, like Point Molate. For more than 20 years, he has campaigned to save Point Molate as a regional park. Thank you, Norman, for being here today.
My pleasure. Okay, my turn?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. So, yeah, I was asked to speak tonight about what's going on, what's happened recently with regard to Point Molate. There's a lot of misinformation that has been spread around, unfortunately, mainly by the mayor, Tom Butt, and his children, who are in positions of power in the city. And so what I want to do is to talk about just where we are, because we are actually at a great point that's leading to, I feel, a victory for us. And that victory is going to be the creation of a regional park at Point Molate, and a real regional park, not the phony park that was approved with the development that SunCal was supposedly going to do. We will get this park, and it will be a great park. It will include protection of historic sites, going back to the Chinese shrimp camp and to the Ohlone sacred sites, and also provide tremendous park recreation and habitat protection for a really crucial landscape and habitat area in the Bay. So let's see where we're at. Just going back a little bit, just to set the stage. After the casino proposal was defeated, the casino developers, that's Levine, Upstream, and the Tribe, the Giddyville band, sued the city, claiming that they had been treated in bad faith and that they were owed millions of dollars. That case was actually a very strong one for the city. It won virtually all points at the beginning, except for one point that was on a very technical legal issue. And that case then proceeded further. At some point, there was a decision made to settle that case that was, in my opinion and many others, engineered by Mayor Tom Butt, who has long wanted to see major development at the site. And that was this threat that was that if the city did not settle this case, the city was going to be out up to $750 million in damages, which was totally phony. And that the important thing to understand is there was a settlement made that was engineered by the mayor. Okay, that settlement had many flaws in it. I won't go into all the legal aspects of that, but SPRAWLDEF and Citizens for Shore Parks, Pam and Jim, who are on this call, and two other people, Paul Carmen and Tony Sustek, sued the city over that settlement agreement. We ultimately lost the case, okay? But in the meantime, so many other things happened that by going forward with that case and carrying it out, we had reached a point where the city was, we had gotten a change in the city council. So we had the 4-person majority on the council. That was Gail McLaughlin, that's Melvin Willis, Claudia Jimenez, and Eduardo Martinez, who understood what was the real issues here. And it was not the issue necessarily that people wanted a park, okay? And of course, as council members, they could never say that's what they want, and they wouldn't want to say that anyway. But what a big issue was is that the way this deal was engineered and the way the development was going to be done was the city was going to be on the hook for major infrastructure improvements at the site to make a large-scale development feasible, okay, financially. And that again was engineered by our friend Tom Butt. So where it happened was that we came to a point where SunCal was approved as the developer for the site for this large-scale development project, which was of luxury housing. And I always tell people that when we talk about the housing at the site, because of the housing crisis in California, you have to tell people the following facts. And the fact is that there was going to be between 1,400 and maybe 2,000 units of housing. For that housing, if you wanted to buy a house, okay, buy one of the units, you had to have, in 2019, an annual income of $250,000 minimum to be eligible to purchase a unit. Okay, it's now 2021, everything's gone on. I bet you that's up to $300,000 a year. That simply is not affordable housing. It's not housing for the vast majority of people in California. It's true luxury housing. When you talk to people, and I found this out when I did talk to people about this, that when I pointed out that fact, boy, the eyes suddenly lit up and it was like, what, you mean I would have to have an income of $250,000 a year to be able to afford a unit there? Yeah, damn right. And only 67 of the units out of those 1,400 minimum were going to be, quote, affordable housing. 67 units out of 1,400 units. So whenever anyone talks about we're trying to build housing at Point Molate, make sure you tell them about that, because that's not housing for the people of California. So what happened was SunCal got the right under what's called the Land Development Agreement to proceed with this development, okay? But one of the issues was that for that kind of development at the size and scale, it needed to have what's called a community facilities district created. And that community facilities district was going to be a bond that was going to be a tax paid for by a tax on all the residents, taxpayers of Richmond. And that bond was going to go for, like 20 years. And unless that was done, and at a rate of, I think it was at a total of $200 million, SunCal made it clear it couldn't go ahead with the project because it couldn't get private financing to pay for the infrastructure costs related to that development. The four people on the council took the brave stance and said, we're not going to do this. And fortunately, SunCal just was unable to show how this was going to be financially feasible for the city. And fortunately, the planning staff at this time and the city attorney, the new city attorney, also stepped up to the plate and said, yeah, wait a minute, we got these issues with this community facilities district, or CFD. So the council voted 4-0-0-0-0 because Tom Butt and Nat Bates went AWOL and refused to show up. I mean, they somehow just disappeared. They wouldn't support their own proposal. And Demlis Johnson was also not present. So when that was defeated, SunCal was in a very bad spot. And SunCal is a major developer around the state. And it, in my opinion, it works by getting the costs for infrastructure, the costs for the development put on the backs of the public in order to make a project work. It doesn't have the kind of wherewithal financing to do this project by private investment. It's a classic socialize the costs, and we as the private investor walk off with a boodle of profits, okay? And so what happened was SunCal then was faced with the situation that it could not go to any developer, any investors, I mean, to get the financing to go forward with this project. So what happened was, under the settlement agreement that Tom Butt had put together, and ultimately we lost the legal case on that, but under the settlement agreement that Tom Butt had put together, by May 21st of this year, SunCal had to purchase the property, Point Molate, for $45 million. Okay. If it could not do that, then certain other conditions I'll explain would occur. So here's SunCal now facing a prospect that it cannot go to investors and say, hey, we got the public to pay for all this infrastructure. Don't worry, you'll make a boodle of dough out of this project. Nobody was stepping forward, so far as we could tell, to give SunCal the money for this. So SunCal then fails to provide the requisite financial information and proof that it has the money in the bank, able to purchase the property by May 21st. And again, the city staff and city attorney, in this case, stepped up to the plate and pointed out all the problems that SunCal had with meeting the requirements, the contractual requirements under the land development agreement that it had signed with the city. And so again, the 4-person majority on the council said, we're not going to approve this. This is crazy. And again, Tom Butt and Nat Bates, they weren't around. They voted no, but Melvin Willis was absent from the meeting. Okay. So what does this mean? Where we are now is that SunCal has not been able to carry forward on its contractual obligations under the land development agreement. That means it's no longer has a right to develop the property, okay? And under the terms of the sweetheart settlement agreement that Tom Butt engineered with the casino developers get to buy the property, the 4 parcels, for $100 each. Now, everybody's, I think, some questions that came in are saying, what do you mean they get the property for $400? Okay, wow, what a steal. Well, there's a lot more to that than just that. And unfortunately, when I read the newspaper articles about this, the reporters really didn't go into the details. Because under the settlement agreement between the casino developers and the city, yes, the casino developers get to purchase these 4 parcels for $400, okay? But here's the catch. They have 5 years in which to market the property for a developer, or if they want to be developers, to be the developer of the property, all right? They have 5 years. If at the end of 5 years, they can't develop the property or market it, sell it to somebody else, the city gets the property back for the $400. So it's not as if the casino developers and the tribe have received this windfall of ownership of this property and now own it forever and ever, okay? And we know, because SunCal couldn't put the investment together, that they're not going to find investors at this point to buy this property, because any investor looking at this is going to say, wait a minute, who's paying for all the infrastructure for this development? Oh, there's no community facilities district. It was rejected. Well, we're not getting into this deal. This is a bad deal. And my own view, and view of many others, is that Levine and the tribe, they don't really want to be developers. That costs a lot of money. They just want money to leave and go somewhere else, okay? So we're sitting here with a situation where, yes, they've gotten the property for $400, but the conditions are such that they have to, in 5 years, if they cannot do anything with this, it goes back to the city permanently, and it's now the city's, now the city owns it again and can do whatever it wants with it at that time, okay? The city also has the right, a reasonable exercise of that right, to reject a offer of purchase by somebody if the tribe and Levine find a purchaser. So they can't, for example, somebody said to me, well, why can't they make a deal with SunCal and sell the property now to SunCal for some, sweetheart price? The city could reject that and say, no, that's not reasonable. We don't believe SunCal has the resources, et cetera, et cetera. So the city is now sitting in a very good position to control what happens with this property, all right? And we have a majority on the council who understand what the real financial implications are for doing a development on the scale of what was approved under the Tom Butt regime. And so what that means is that we're actually in a really good position to finally get the park, because SunCal is out of the picture. I'll explain a little bit more about what they're probably going to do or have done. And we have owners of the property. They don't want it to be developers. They want to cash out and leave. And we have on our side been working with the East Bay Regional Park District and other funding sources to put together money to be able to essentially acquire the property as a park. And so we are really in a very good position. We have lost the lawsuit regarding the settlement agreement, but we've lost the battle, but we're winning the war. Okay, that's the best way I can put it. SunCal has, of course, filed a lawsuit. This was to be expected. SunCal does this all the time. When they tried to pull the same stunt with the city of Alameda over development there, they won. It was rejected by the city. They then tried to put a ballot measure on the for the city to vote on. That was put on the ballot, and they lost by like 70% of the vote. They then sued the city. They did ultimately reach some settlement, but SunCal, had to leave and was out of the picture. So SunCal has filed a lawsuit. They're alleging all these crazy things that have gone on and that they're owed millions and millions of dollars, but it's a very weak lawsuit. And certainly I think they're just angling for some way to get some dough to leave the scene. So we're now in a situation where we're going to achieve, I think, in the end, having a true regional park at Point Molate. And maybe I'll leave it at that because I really like to answer questions if people have questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Norman, for that comprehensive and clear explanation. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your electronic hand. Sally will be calling on speakers.
Okay, the first electronic hand is Jeannie Courts. And if people don't want to ask questions out loud, they can put them in the chat and I'll monitor the chat and ask your question for you. So Jeannie's number one. Go, Jeannie.
So Norman, thank you. That was really informative. People are wondering how the $400 deal happened, and I don't know. Did I miss something? Did you mention that it was Tom Butt who orchestrated that deal?
Well, okay, the $400 deal was part of this settlement agreement that the city entered into with the casino developer and tribe. And that was, so far as anybody can tell, that was engineered by Tom Butt as part of the deal. I mean, we don't know what went on in the behind the scenes, but this was from everything we understand from talking with people, is that this whole settlement agreement was put together essentially at the instigation of Tom Butt to reach a deal so there could be a major development at the site, and to resolve the lawsuit with the casino developer, but really to engineer a development project, because Tom Butt's been in favor of development projects ever since the casino. He originally was a big supporter of the casino.
Right.
So in fact, he was such a supporter that he was egging on Jim Levine and the tribe to make a proposal for a casino at the very beginning. And he shot down a chance for, and I know Chevron's not exactly the best corporate citizen in the world, but he shot down a proposal that would have had Chevron purchasing the property for $80 million, with $5 million for a in Richmond youth training center, and it would essentially be open space. So that's what I think that's why I think Tom Butt was behind this deal.
Okay.
Does that help answer the question? I hope I got it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
And here's one other thing that I want to point out here is there's been this big issue that the city somehow and this is really attack on Gail McLaughlin, that Gail McLaughlin screwed up the whole deal with the casino and the tribe because she was out there telling the Bureau of Indian Affairs that they could not approve this casino project for Richmond. Okay. And she did that. I was in bad faith as a city council person, et cetera, et cetera. When you go, there's a 14-page opinion by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Secretary of Interior, when they had to decide under the law whether or not the Giddyville band could take this property in trust, have a property put into trust, and then as their land. Okay, that 14-page single-spaced analysis deals with all these other specific kinds of requirements that a tribe has to show in order to show a connection with the land. Okay? The casino proposal is 2 sentences, and it's merely a reference by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. There was a proposal for the tribe to have a casino at the site, which the city on an advisory vote rejected. That was it. Okay. The problem the tribe had from the beginning was that it could not meet the specific criteria under the statute dealing with transfer of property to a tribe for the Secretary of Interior to find that this tribe actually had a real connection with Point Molate. Anyway, that's a footnote. Sorry.
Thank you, Norman. Okay, David Cafton has the next question.
Hi, thank you for the excellent presentation, Norman. I was wondering, is there any land there that the new owners control that currently Richmond citizens enjoy using out there that now they won't be able to use? That's one of my questions.
Okay. Well, there's still a shoreline regional park that is operated by the East Bay Regional Park District, and there will be the Bay Trail. They can't keep people away from using that, but they could lock up everything else, yeah, if they wanted to, which they have done partially already.
I see. Do they have any obligations with regard to marketing? Could they sell separate parcels, the 4 parcels, and get some developers that would put, single family luxury homes out there on those lots?
That's a very good question, because the settlement agreement doesn't really deal with that issue about partial transfer of the property. It's possible that could be done, actually. However, here's the catch there. Right now, because of the general plan amendments and the zoning to the property, a large-scale development is approved. Okay, that's under the existing land use, and we tried to challenge that, but we lost. We do have the lawsuit challenging the environmental impact report. That's on appeal. So if we win on that, then everything's gone, and you go back to square one. But if we don't win on that, then a party could purchase, in theory, a party could purchase a portion of the property and then make an application to the city for some kind of development. Initially, it would have to be consistent with the general plan and zoning, but if they wanted to change that, they would have to go through a whole general plan amendment process and rezoning process that would open them up to, challenges, potentially a further environmental impact report of some kind. So that probably is not something that a investor is going to want to do. I mean, that's just my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether, if the city still has the right to not approve a transfer, a sale of the property. So the city could probably say, look, we're only going to approve a sale of all the property to one person or one entity. We're not going to do this piecemeal sale, a transfer. So there's a lot of issues there, but that's a good question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Norman. Let me ask a question from the chat. And the question is, will you or East Bay Regional Park District try to make an offer during the 5-year search for a buyer process, or wait until the 5 years is up?
Well, if I ever win the Powerball at about $1 billion, sure. It's possible. I mean, that's something that could be done, and that's why we're in a very good position now, because we have the casino developer and Tribe now as the owner, and as I said, they just want to cash out. So that is something that could be done. Whether it can be done and what the conditions would be, the terms, that would be something that would have to be negotiated. But that's something that could be done. Yeah.
Thank you. Paul Carmen has a question.
Hey, Norman, 2 legal questions for you. I'll just ask them both at once, and then you can answer them. The first question is any chance that CEQA appeal, the state court's going to put that on the back burner now that the SunCal plan is at least temporarily kaput? That's my first question. And my second question is, do you know anything about the status of the injunction that SunCal filed to block upstream in the tribe from attempting to do anything with the land until their lawsuit is brought to an end. So those are my two questions.
Yeah. So answering the first question, it may be, I doubt seriously the court would put that on hold, because essentially what we're saying, we lost at the trial court, just so everybody knows. So we're the one appealing. And I mean, basically I don't think we would want to have this put in abeyance. We would basically say, look, we need to get a decision on this. And if that means, because what we want to see is the whole development undone and the city going back to square one. So we have no interest in doing that. I don't think SunCal wants to do that, because if it's held in abeyance, then they would have to go to investors and say, well, we don't know what the court's going to do, but please give us a boodle of money so we can do what we want to do, even though we could lose in the end. So that's not going to be stopped at all. I mean, that, you know, we need to see that go through to the end. The second question is, as to the injunction, I seriously doubt that would be something that the SunCal could win on. For an injunction to go forward, the court first has to find that the party seeking the injunction has a not just a chance of winning, but is in a position where they are more than likely going to prevail. And I don't think that SunCal can show that. And secondly, since this deals with private investment, they would have to put up a huge bond in regard to this, so that you know, I don't think SunCal really wants to put up that kind of money since it can't put up the money to buy the property to begin with. So I don't see that as a likely outcome. It's just part of a typical developer strategy to gum up the works and get, you know, to try to just make everything a mess. But in the end, I don't think they would win that.
Okay, thank you, Norman. The next question is from Jim Hansen.
Thank you, Sally and Pam.
Oh, and Jim was one of the plaintiffs too in the lawsuit. I forgot to mention Jim. Don't want to leave him out.
Well, personally, as a Richmond resident, I'm very glad that close to $300 million Melrose bond was not put on the city and our backs. So I appreciate that action. I just a little bit more of a comment, thinking about David's question about parcel development. They still have the issue of infrastructure, which is the real, one of the big limitations we all know there. And so in a way, it's kind of a comment that would have to be solved for any housing out there. And which still goes back to when we had a Point Molate advisory committee before the mayor disbanded it, that some of our volunteers did some research that showed that they could do a on-site wastewater treatment, which is one of the big things that isn't there. But it would require a substantially scaled back, say, operation in the Wyanhaven area. So just a comment on what the scenarios could be. There are still those existing limitations. That's all. Thanks.
Yeah, let me add one other thing here I didn't address that probably should be addressed, and that is that what I've heard is people say, well, look, had SunCal ponied up the 45 million under the agreement, the settlement agreement, Levine and the tribe would have gotten half of that, 22.5 million, and the city would have gotten the other half, 22.5 million. So isn't the city out $22.5 million? Yes, in one sense, but as people have pointed out, the city would then probably have to bank that money to ensure that whatever development occurred at the site, if it did occur, that would not bankrupt the city down the line or require large increases in tax. And secondly, the city, that's really the city selling public land. There should be a park for for money. And that's not what the city should be doing with public land, particularly the land that makes up Point Molate. There's the habitat issues, there's the sacred site issue dealing with the Ohlone, there's the historical site, and there's just the fact that, public entities should not be selling off public land to make money. That's just, my book, that's simply not right. What can happen is at the end of the day, a transfer of property can occur where Richmond gets a great park out there run by the East Bay Regional Park District. So Richmond doesn't have to pay for the park facilities. It's the East Bay Regional Park District. And we get a great regional park. We get great habitat. We get great protection of resources. So, but keep that in mind, because somebody may say, well, wow, the city's out 22.5 million. Well, yeah, if you want to sell your heritage, go ahead. But that's not why I'm here.
Other questions?
I can't have been that brilliant here.
Oh, yes, you were. Well, okay, so, go ahead, Jim.
Just a brief follow-up, because we hear this term economic development kicked around. The Trust for Public Land and others have shown that a park development, as you see with things like the High Line in New York City and a lot of examples, are an incredible stimulus for a city. It's not only quality of life that's improved by places to go get outside and exercise, but also it does raise the attraction of the city as an investment opportunity for business and other things. So just wanted to say that.
Does Elsa have a question?
Yeah, I understand that there's someone new in charge of the what's it called? The Indian administration, on federal level. I believe that there's actually a Native American in charge of that, and I'm wishing maybe that the real descendants of the local Native Americans could be recognized, and that would change the whole equation, wouldn't it?
Possibly, yes. Yeah. I mean, I can't really speak for the relationship between the particular Ohlone band and the Giddyville band. But yeah, that could change things. My own understanding experience is that the Native American tribes tend to, because of the history, they tend to not want to interfere with another tribe's chances of developing something or getting something, but that's just part of the historical development or what's happened historically. But yeah, no, I'm sure the Ohlone, if they could, would want to try to get this protected as their land.
Okay, so I'll ask a question that you've touched on a little bit. How can SunCal gum this up? What kind of capacity do they have? We know they've got warehouses of attorneys, and that's a big part of their business plan. But are there things that we need to watch for or that we need to be on guard against?
Well, they're trying to gum up the works by filing a lawsuit. And what they're hoping for is, frankly, in my opinion, more of a political solution than a legal solution. And that is that a new city council in November would go back to the old Tom Butt regime method of dealing with this and cut a sweetheart deal. So, you know, one of the most fascinating things to see in this whole matter is that we have now a city attorney who is has the guts and backbone to work with the majority on the council to oppose what SunCal wants to do, okay? And even what, in certain respect, what the tribe and the casino developer wanted to do. Well, the only reason for that, as I'm sure everybody on this call knows, is that if you're a city attorney, you're going to do, one, not only what's good for the city, but you're going to do what your city council majority wants you to do. Okay, they're the bosses. And in the past, when we had Tom Butt running the show, I mean, the city attorneys under that regime simply were, in my opinion, lapdogs for Tom Butt. I mean, there was just incredible things that went on that I just shook my head at. And the only reason is that they knew where the bread was buttered, and they weren't going to go against Tom Butt. But now Tom Butt's in the minority, and that's clear from everything that's gone on. I mean, so the staff also, they're doing what the majority on the council are telling them to do, okay? Because they're the bosses. So that's why in November, it's absolutely essential that we get not simply to keep the 4-person majority, but we increase that as much as we can, you know, with the election. And that's the bottom line here. This is the whole thing. How we were able to get where we're at was a combination of us in the public saying we're not giving up. We're gonna try every lever we can, lawsuits and everything else, but also making sure that a majority on the city council got elected that was going to be a true watchdog for the public and truly have the interests of Richmond on its behalf, and not the interests of some developers. So that's I cannot emphasize more the need for us to be able to keep the majority or increase it in November.
Jamin.
Hi. So I had a question because we had a previous presentation that was about one of the reuses of Point Molate, and a proposal was to put out soccer fields and a few buildings that could be used for educational purposes. Do you have any sense of if that is an appropriate use of the land as far as maintaining the biodiversity and maintaining the populations of the eelgrass and the birds and all that stuff, or would that have little to no impact and would still be a wise, judicious use of the land and not and be minimal in its impact? I mean, just kind of because it sounds like a great use, and I want to have a kind of better understanding of how, if that is a good proposal or if that's just a good alternative.
No, actually, we the SPRAWLDEF, Sierra Club, Citizen Shore Parks, we've all advocated for that. And the plan we put together, which we felt was going to be a reasonable plan, but it included some development at the old Winehaven site, included having sports fields at the site, because there are areas where that would be appropriate for a use. And that's part of having a park. This is, you know, the land here is such that you can have the shoreline areas, we can protect the eelgrass beds, and we have the habitat areas, and we can have areas for active recreation out there, all on this huge property, all at the same time. And, you know, we even had, when we were talking about this, we had members, I think, of the Indian and Pakistani community saying, well, what about a cricket field? Great, if there's a spot for it, sure, why not? We did this with the McLaughlin East Shore State Park, okay? People will go by the Tom Bates sports fields. That was put in as an active recreation area. It's not necessarily technically part of the state park, but it's part of the state park. It's next to, almost adjacent to the preserve area at the meadow, what's called the meadow. And it's right on the shoreline of what's called North Basin Cove, which is a habitat protected area for rafting birds for half the year. And we all supported that as a great example of how you could put mix of active and passive recreation with habitat protection all together in a way that really worked. So yeah, we could do that at Point Molate.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've been very, very vocal about is that the Tom Bates sports fields were put together as a five city JPA, Joint Powers Agreement, that included Richmond, okay? And I know from talking with Richmond people that they feel that it's great, but they want to have something in Richmond too. And Point Molate would be a way to expand that JPA to include soccer and ball fields in Richmond that would be part of this JPA and bring a more integrated approach to the JPA from what it is now.
Thank you, Norman. Elsa Stevens has a question.
Yeah, I was at a gathering of Point Molate supporters, and a soccer team showed up bragging about how there are soccer teams in Marin that can't wait to play against the Richmond soccer team at Point Molate. I mean, there are soccer organizations ready and willing to participate.
Yes. It's a win-win, even if one of the teams has to lose the game.
Okay. Any other questions?
I think Karen.
I was clapping.
Oh,
Oh,
okay. Yeah, it's hard to tell the difference between the clapping icon and the raised hand icon.
Sorry.
No problem. Any other questions? Any final remarks from Norm?
I've kind of gone on probably too long. Anyway, I just want to emphasize that we are ahead. We're winning. If you had asked me if this is where we would be, if you asked me 2 years ago, this is where we would be today, I would have said, well, I hope this is where we're at, but we are really ahead of the game here. That's always what happens in these long campaigns for parks and open space. I mean, we just got that last year, a 30-year campaign to stop off-road vehicles in what's called Tesla out in eastern Alameda County. 30 years of fighting the off-road vehicle community and state parks that wanted to put that through one of the richest habitat areas in eastern Alameda County. But it was done, and we'll do this. We'll get it done. And make sure we just get the right people on the city council who have the backbone to stand up and say, no, this is what we're going to do. City attorney, this is what we want to do. Make it so. In the words of Jean-Luc Picard, make it so.
Thank you, Norman. Were there any final questions? I think Regina had one final question.
Sure.
There we go.
So can we start a fundraising campaign for 5 years down the road so that there's funds that we can throw in with the East Bay Parks to purchase the land?
Well, we're doing that right now. I mean, we're talking about millions, millions and millions of dollars.
No, I understand that.
Pardon?
I said, I
Oh,
understand.
yeah, we're doing that right now. I mean, there's money at the state level for parks and open space that had never existed before for, well, maybe since the 1960s in California, that's now available. There's also astonishingly money at the federal level. And so there are pots of money. And fortunately, with the East Bay Regional Park District now in a more active role, they know how to leverage money. I mean, one of the great things about our East Bay Regional Park District is that over the years, for acquisition of property and for other purposes too, they have people on staff who really know how to take $1 million that they have and turn it into 5 million or 10 million from other sources. Okay, so that's one of the great things about the East Bay Regional Park District. So yes, we're working on that.
I just wondered about if Chevron had offered in the 90s, $80 million to purchase it. Has anybody contacted them in the meantime to see? Because what I had read was that they were going.
Well, actually, a few years ago, Bob Chasty and I did go back and approach Chevron about what to do. Okay, and at that point, Chevron had been so burnt by what had happened before, particularly with Tom Butt, that basically their approach was, hey, we're going to take a back seat. You know, right now, at that point, what it looked like was it was Tom Butt's show, and they weren't going to do anything so that they were going to get burnt again by Tom Butt. Okay.
Okay.
So now maybe we'll see whether or not we can go back to them and see if they're willing to be part of this. Because I think a lot of what they were holding back for was that they didn't see, what they saw was a majority in favor of this massive development under Tom Butt. It was like, look, we're not gonna, we're Chevron, we're not gonna get out ahead of this because one, that just hurts us. But secondly, I think they understood they tried to do that, then Tom Butt would simply turn on them and say, see, this is just another land grab by Chevron. So.
Okay. All right, thanks. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you, Norman. Thank you for bringing so much clarity to the issues because we're just drowning in misinformation. And thank you for all of your questions that are helping, that really help to bring the clarity that the public needs. And we hope that posting this presentation will help the public understand the recent events. And to close, we're winning, but the fight isn't over. So please continue writing to your council members, speaking at City Council. And as Norman and Elsa said, vote for the representatives that will actually fight for the public interest. Thank you very much. And we hope to see all of you next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Danny.
Of course.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah.
We should all get a saved version to our computers. And if you don't, then I'll send you both an email with it and then of the file. So thank you guys for having me.
Oh,
Thank you,
for
Danny.
doing this.
So appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you.
Anytime. I'll send
Thanks, Tina, Chia, Ellen. Thanks, Jamin.
All right. See y'all later. Have a great night.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.